We're continuing our series entitled, It's Not About You. And today's word is comparison. And I think that's a word we can all relate to. We compare ourselves in so many ways. And you've probably heard it defined as the thief of joy, that comparison is the thief of joy. And it's something that steals our joy from being present, from enjoying the moments in our lives, and to make sure that we're giving our best to those moments as well. So I'm going to give you some ways we compare ourselves to other people. We're going to talk about six things that comparison does to us to create a downward spiral, and then 3 ways that we can combat comparison. And some of the ways that I've seen that we compare ourselves is that we compare ourselves to others. And when we do that, we're looking at their strengths and their gifts and their talents. We say that person's stronger than I am, or faster, or taller, or they have better leadership abilities than I do. And we're not focusing on who we are, but focusing on who they are, and we compare ourselves to others. Another way that we can compare ourselves is to our previous self. And I've coached a lot of athletes, and they'll compare themselves to their previous self. They'll say things like, I wish I could get back to when I was playing my best or when I was having my best moments. And maybe that was yesterday or a month ago or 2 years ago. But they have to realize we're in this current moment, and what does that mean to give their best in this moment? We can also compare ourselves to what others have. I don't have the resources they have. I don't have the ability to communicate that they do. I don't have the team that they have. And when we do that, again, we're not focusing on what we have, and it leads us to focusing on what we wished we have. And that's another way that we can compare ourselves, to compare ourselves to what we wished we had and to what others have. And overall, when we fall into the trap of comparison, it leads us to not being content and not focusing on being present in the current moment and stepping into that moment with joy and with gratefulness and with faithfulness. And that's what we have to do to make the most of the moments in our lives. And so I want to give you 6 ways that comparison can lead us into a downward spiral. But again, we're going to rebound and recover with 3 ways that we can combat comparison in this podcast as well. And so I think one of the ways that comparison leads us into a downward spiral is that it steals our joy. Comparison steals our joy. And I've already mentioned that, but it takes us away from being fully present in this current moment, and it steals any joy that we have about stepping into competition or stepping into a leadership moment. That when we start to look around and compare ourselves, it steals our joy and steals the joy from the moment that we were stepping into and seeing that challenge as an opportunity. But instead, we start looking around and we get distracted, we get disillusioned, and we get defeated before we've even started to play or in the midst of competition or in the midst of pursuing our purpose. We compare and then it defeats us. A second way that comparison can take us down a downward spiral is that it wastes our time. Comparison wastes our time. And what I mean by that, it robs us of being fully present and giving our best. Comparison robs us of being fully present and giving our best. It does us no good to waste our time comparing ourselves to other people. And it just takes mental and emotional energy away from giving our best to that moment. And it robs us of the opportunity of being fully present and giving our best. And so we can't waste our time with comparison. A third way that comparison leads us into a downward spiral is comparison leads us to complacency. Comparison leads us to complacency. So what does that look like? It looks like somebody saying, well, at least I'm doing better than they are. So we start comparing ourselves. We're not giving our best, but we kind of look around and say, well, at least I'm better than they were, or I'm doing better than they are. And that leads us to being complacent and not focusing on giving our best and growing and getting better every day. A fourth way that comparison can lead us to a downward spiral is it leads us to a scarcity mentality. Comparison leads us to a scarcity mentality versus having an abundance mentality. And we need to make sure that we have an abundance mentality. When we have that scarcity mentality, we're thinking that there's only enough glory to go around. It's this idea that there's only so much glory to go around, and that if somebody else wins and succeeds, that we begin a downward spiral of doubt and towards ourselves versus being grateful for the opportunities we have and knowing we can also have another opportunity to succeed in the next moment even if somebody has success. And it just leads us into this scarcity mentality that leads to a mindset of doubt because they won and we're not grateful for, and happy for them and happy for their leadership moment, and knowing that we can also have enough leadership moments in our lives and enough victories in our lives. And there's enough of that to go around. And when we have an abundance mentality, we're not going to compare to other people, and we're going to focus on what we're doing and focus on the goals set before us as well. A fifth way that comparison leads us to a downward spiral is that comparison undermines a growth mindset. Comparison undermines a growth mindset. Comparison nurtures a fixed mindset. And that looks like thinking that, well, if we compare ourselves to them and we're not as good as they are, then we have a fixed mindset about how we can grow and get better. Joy in opposition to comparison nurtures a growth mindset for us. Whereas comparison nurtures a fixed mindset, joy nurtures a growth mindset, knowing that even if somebody does have those strengths or even if they do succeed, I can grow and get better, and I can be as good as they are or be better than they are. And again, it's not about being better than they are, but being my best self and accomplishing the goals and maybe accomplishing even higher goals that somebody else can. But again, it focuses us on the task at hand of growing and getting better and not leading us into a downward spiral of having a fixed mindset. And that's what comparison does to us. And we need to have a growth mindset in terms of us growing and getting better every day and becoming our best in those moments that count. And then a sixth way that comparison can lead us to a downward spiral is that it discredits God who created us. And I think this may be the most important. Comparison discredits God who created us. He created you. He has uniquely created you with gifts and talents and given you moments to glorify Him in the process of using your gifts and talents in all areas of your life. And so when you compare, you're discrediting the one who created you. And we don't need to do that because He did not create us to compare ourselves to others. He wants you to be content. He wants us to be content with who we are and make the most of the moments that we've been given. And we compare ourselves to others, it's discrediting the person who created us. And He wants us to be content with who you are, and make the most of the moments in your life and the moments that you've been given and that we've been given. And so we often say that on the podcast. We need to make the most of the moments we've been given. And that's so important that we don't discredit the one who gave us this life and wants us to succeed in life and wants us to glorify Him in the process. So given those 6 ways that a comparison leads us into a downward spiral, what are some ways that we can combat comparison? And I want to give you 3 ways as we in this podcast to focus on. And one is being grateful for who you are and what you have. Be grateful for who you are and what you have. You can have a gratefulness journal, and you every day or every week can jot down 3 reasons you're grateful for who you are and what you have. And when you do that, it takes your mind off comparison, because then you think about all the ways that you've been blessed and then those gifts and talents that you have. I think another way that we can combat comparison is to be content in all circumstances. Be content in all circumstances. Paul talks about this in the Bible in Philippians 4, that he's learned in any situation to be content. And he had a lot of struggles in life and a lot of challenges that he was facing when he was writing some of these letters in the Bible. But he had learned to be content in all circumstances. And I think we have to do that. And it is a process. Again, it's not like we're going to be content the first time we face challenges. But over time, when we face those challenging circumstances, we can learn to be content in all circumstances. When we're at the mountaintop and when we're succeeding, and then when we have those challenges in life, that we can be content. And that gets us away from being comparing ourselves to other people and to falling into that trap. And then a third way that we can combat comparison is to become a rejoice always type of person. Become a rejoice always type of person. And I really want to challenge you to do that this week. I love this verse. A mentor of mine shared in a recent talk, and he posted it on his feed, and I love this Bible verse. It says to rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and give thanks in all circumstances, For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Jesus for you. That's in 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18 in the Bible. And I think that's so important that we do those three things. Are we rejoicing always? Are we giving thanks in all circumstances? And are we praying continually that he will not lead us to comparison, but will lead us to being content and to being joyful for the life that he's given? My grandmother used to always say, if I got frustrated about something, or as she said, woke up on the wrong side of the bed and was not in a good mood in the morning, she would really put this verse into me. And I didn't always like it when she said it, but I learned to embrace it over time because it was so true. That if I had looked at something that was going to get me down, if I was comparing myself to other people, if I was down about circumstances, she would say, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And that's from Psalm 118:24. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And sometimes we have to say that over and over again to be joyful and to get in that mode of not comparing ourselves to other people, but being glad for this moment that we have life. And there are plenty of things that we can be grateful for. There's plenty of things that you can be grateful for today. So I just want to encourage you to do that, to not let comparison steal your joy and be the thief of joy, but to be content in all circumstances, to rejoice for the gifts and talents that you have and the moments that you've been given, to glorify God in the process by leveraging and using your gifts and talents to make an impact in the lives of other people, knowing it's not about you, it's about other people. And whether you're leading at work, whether you're leading at home, whether you're leading in the community or on the field and on the court, that you will have joy today, not compare yourselves to other people. And as always, that you will make the most of the moments in your life.